Hi, Deborah Green here to talk about what is 5G and why you should care. I am a wellness consultant specializing in mind body integration, also author of the book Endless Energy, The Essential Guide to Energy Health. You can learn more about that at my website, yourenergymatters.com. I'm also the founding director of a coalition of concerned Hawaii residents focused on educating people about the dangers of wireless technology and advocating for safe technology. You can learn more about us at keepyourpower.org. Let's dive right in. Start at the very beginning. What is 5G? And there's a little confusion about this because sometimes when your cell phone or computer are searching for a Wi-Fi connection, you might see something show up that says 5G. Well, that is not the kind of 5G that we're going to be focusing on in my presentation. That 5G stands for 5 gigahertz. Wi-Fi used to operate exclusively at 2.4 gigahertz, but then recently they added the 5 gigahertz band, and sometimes that shows up on your cable box or computer or phone when it's searching for a Wi-Fi connection. But again, the 5G that we're talking about is different than that. So just because this shows up in your searching box doesn't mean you have the 5G. So what is the 5G that we're talking about? Well, it stands for fifth generation wireless technology. And again, it doesn't stand for 5 gigahertz. When cell phones first came on the market, they operated on 1G, which was the first generation technology. And basically, you could make a phone call, and cell phones were about the size of a shoebox. The second generation, 2G, then came into effect, and that brought us something like, unlimited long distance. But when 3G, the third generation, was implemented, things really changed a lot. Then you could use your phone to surf the web and check email and do text messages and things like that. And now most of us have 4G, fourth generation, or LTE. And when that came on the scene, that allowed us to actually stream video on our phones. So every time there's a new generation of wireless technology, there's some new level of functionality that gets introduced. But 5G is categorically different than anything that has ever existed. 5G, fifth generation. We're told that it's going to bring us faster downloads and lower latency. Latency meaning the lag time. Sometimes when you're surfing the web on your phone, there's a little bit of a delay. That's called latency. But 5G is not really about lower latency or faster downloads. 5G should in fact be called AI IoT, which stands for Artificial Intelligence and the Internet of Things. Because 5G is all about ushering in robotics and artificial intelligence and augmented reality and the internet of everything, where everything in existence, everything inside your home, everything you come in contact with and that comes in contact with you and your body, even inside your body, is chipped and antennaed and transmitting and emitting and collecting data at every step of the way, interconnected with the internet of everything. It's important to realize that 5G adds onto and does not replace 4G. That means all of the towers and antennas that we currently have are going to stay, and there's going to be more added onto that. Because 5G uses an additional part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and that's millimeter wave frequencies. This is a higher frequency wavelength. And millimeter wave frequencies are a little bit fragile. They get easily impeded by walls and buildings and trees and things like that. And that means that 5G antennas have to be installed much closer together because the signals get easily blocked. And so 5G means that the antennas and towers and infrastructure are going to be brought much closer to us. Right now, 4G towers are mostly on top of buildings or out in the country. You'll see big towers. But 5G is going to change all that and going to bring what are called 5G small cells much closer to us. And that means closer to our homes as well, as close as 15 feet to your home and down closer to eye level as well, because they're using public rights of way to install these things. 5G also involves about 100,000 new satellites, mostly in low orbit, but in low to mid orbit. And also 5 million new 5G ground antennas in the US alone. 5G is a global deployment. It's being carried out throughout the planet, except for a few locations where it has been banned. 5G includes base stations and devices that transmit through multiple antennas in phased arrays, emitting steerable laser-like beams that track each other. And that means each 5G-enabled cell phone is like a miniature cell tower. And that's true right now, even of 4G phones. They are like mini cell towers, but 5G is going to ramp all of that up exponentially. Every 5G-enabled phone contains dozens of tiny antennas to track and aim narrowly focused beams that search and connect to the nearest antenna. And that might be in another device, it might be in a smart appliance, it might be in a 5G small cell antenna. And the FCC has approved 5G to operate at 20 watts, which is 10 times more powerful than what we currently have. So we're talking about radiation that is 10 to hundreds of times greater than what we currently have. The idea is that everything will happen through your smartphone. You will live in a smart home where all of your devices and appliances are smart. They're chipped, they're emitting and transmitting, they're collecting data. And this is an example of products that are already on the market. We have smart diapers, smart pacifiers, smart mattresses, smart toothbrushes, smart pills that can track what's going on inside your body as the pill is ingested, smart toilets, sex bots, tampons, smart condoms, womb pods, and so forth. The list goes on and on. Your smart house will be part of a smart city with smart cars and smart buildings that are all interconnected and transmitting through the cloud connection. Internet of Things devices are approaching 1 trillion, and then the smart cities will be interconnected with other smart cities in smart states and smart countries until the entire planet just becomes one interconnected, transmitting, emitting, data collecting web where we all live happily ever after, or maybe not. It's important to understand that 5G is a marketing term, and as a marketing term, it can mean whatever big telecom wants it to mean, and they keep changing the meaning. 5G right now includes 3 different frequency bands, which, as I mentioned, also includes 4G. So the bottom line is 5G is a frequency hog. It takes up an enormous amount of the electromagnetic spectrum that is available for telecommunications. And 5G is also an energy hog. It uses enormous amounts of energy. So 5G is not clean, not green, not environmentally friendly, and not sustainable. 5G occupies the high frequency band, which is these millimeter waves, which are microwaves of 20 gigahertz and above. And these are the 5G small cells. These antennas are used in urban areas where there are dense populations, and also in concert halls and football stadiums and things like that. This is a picture of 5G small cells on the island of Oahu in Honolulu. And as you can see, this is mounted on public infrastructure, in this case, a light pole. And these small cells are quite close to these apartment buildings nearby. This is another picture of 5G infrastructure, again, in Hawaii and extremely close to this residential home. 5G also includes data boxes like this one that this couple in Houston, Texas came home to find in their front yard without almost any notice whatsoever. And again, because 5G uses public infrastructure, public rights of way, if you have an easement, you could easily end up with one of these things in your front yard as well. So we're talking about something that is very ugly and can grossly affect the property value of your home. 5G also occupies the mid-frequency band, which is again microwaves between 1 and 6 gigahertz. And these are the big towers and antenna clusters that you see pretty much all over the place. 5G also occupies the lower frequency band of ultra high frequency, which is 300 megahertz to 1 gigahertz. This is a picture of some flat panels mounted on a smokestack in an old sugar mill on Maui Island in Hawaii. And sadly, there's a lot of towers and antennas being put on schools because big telecom pays, in order for properties to install these things, and schools and churches and parks are always looking for money. The sad thing is we know that this type of radiation is particularly harmful for children, but lots of schools end up having towers and antennas on them. And this is a picture of the fake pine tree tower, which is called a monopine, and you can see the panels not so well hidden up there. Obviously, this fake pine tree looks quite different than the other pine trees surrounding it. If you want to find out what kind of 5G infrastructure is near you, you can check out the Ookla 5G map. And you can click down on this map and it will give you quite a detailed picture of what's going on in your area with regard to 5G deployments. It's also important to understand that current towers are beefed up 4G that's easily convertible to 5G with a software update. And with this beefed up 4G, the signals are more modulated and pulsed, and people are actually able to feel this. People that never before had symptoms or weren't able to feel this energy are now able to feel it because of this increased modulation. It's like the difference between white noise versus random, erratic blasts of noise when the signals get modulated like this. So whether it's 4G, 5G, 10G, 2G, it doesn't really matter. Wireless radiation is harmful. At this point in time, there's over 10,000 peer-reviewed studies showing clinical evidence of sick and injured people. There's experimental evidence showing DNA damage, tumors, damage to cells and organ systems in humans, plants, and animals. And that's an important point because this type of radiation not only affects humans, but it also affects the environment, plants, animals, insects, mammals. And there's plenty of epidemiological evidence as well with cancer and heart disease. Not a pretty picture. Wireless radiation is harmful to all life. And then there's the 5G satellites. Starlink, which is Elon Musk's company, has already launched 858 5G satellites, and they have 42,000 planned. OneWeb has launched 74 5G satellites, and they have 48,000 planned. And this is just two companies at this point in time. And of course, these numbers are always increasing. And there are more companies that are launching 5G satellites as well, like Amazon and Facebook. Eventually, the plans are for over 100,000 new satellites. Eventually, every inch of planet Earth will be bathed in radiation 24/7, 365, with no refuge, no sanctuary, no place where you can be protected from this. If you want to learn more about the satellites, please check out Arthur Furstenberg's website, 5gspaceappeal.org. And also his amazing book, The Invisible Rainbow, where he documents the rise of human illnesses and environmental harms due to the destruction of the biosphere. We have a tendency to think that wireless is everywhere, so it must be safe, right? I mean, it's everywhere. Tablets, Fitbit, hotspots, cordless phones, Bluetooth, everything, cell phones, smartwatches, Wi-Fi, it goes on and on. So it must be safe, right? Because it's everywhere. Well, we don't have to look too far back in history to see that that's not a safe assumption. This is 1947 Time magazine stating exhaustive tests have shown that when properly used, DDT is a benefactor of all humanity. Well, of course, we know better now. And then there were the ever popular X-ray machines in shoe stores. These things were everywhere across the US. The idea being you go to a shoe store to try on some shoes, you put a pair of shoes on, you stick your feet in the X-ray machine, it X-rays your feet with these shoes on, and the X-rays will show you how the shoes are fitting. So people used to try on multiple pairs of shoes, get multiple X-rays at one time. Children used to play in these things, stick their hands inside, stick their heads inside. Of course, we know better now. And then there was big tobacco. Everybody was smoking cigarettes. Santa Claus smoking cigarettes. Babies smoking cigarettes. Doctors recommending that people smoke cigarettes. When I was growing up, my best friend's mother was told by her physician to smoke cigarettes during her pregnancy. She was told that it would help her with the pregnancy. And of course, plenty of scientific evidence showing that not only is smoking safe, but it's actually good for you. And dentists got in on the act. Well, of course, we know better now. It's called the Tobacco Playbook, and it goes like this. Step number 1, you create a highly addictive product. Big Tobacco knew that nicotine was highly addictive. Big Tech knows that your cell phone is addictive. It's designed to be addictive. Then you hide the relevant research. If there's research showing harm, you do your best to mask that and hide it, and you discredit any researchers that dare to publish research that opposes what you're saying. And to prevent that from happening, you actually pay off the researchers in advance to try to prevent them from publishing their research in the first place. Then you pour on the propaganda to the public and convince everyone that your product is safe and necessary, and then you take over the regulating agencies. Big Telecom especially is very good at this last step of taking over the regulating agencies, and you can read all about that in the Harvard Ethics Committee report called Captured Agency: How the Federal Communications Commission is dominated by the industries it presumably regulates. So the FCC is tasked with protecting us, and they have been captured by Big Telecom. So nobody's really looking out for us. The FCC is very problematic because they have not updated their safety guidelines since 1996, and those were mostly based on science from the 1980s. The US has some of the least protective safety guidelines in the world for wireless radiation. Thankfully, there have been some lawsuits, many lawsuits actually, filed against the FCC, and one of the most recent was filed by the Children's Health Defense and the Environmental Health Trust. In response to this lawsuit, the FCC replied by claiming that there's no evidence of harm, which is shocking because the plaintiffs had provided lots of evidence. And when the FCC came back and said there's no evidence of harm, the plaintiffs' legal team amassed 11,000 pages of evidence of harm from wireless radiation. So things are changing, but slowly. There is this time lag that happens between whenever a new technology or product is put on the market and there's enough scientific research showing whether the product is safe or not. And if it turns out to be harmful, there's another time lag that happens before government regulation can kick in to actually protect us. And when the governmental agencies are captured and taken over by the industry, that time lag just expands a lot. And that's where we're at right now. Corporations are extremely aware of this time lag, and they constantly exploit it. And the most recent examples of that are vaping and opioids. There's a lot of money to be made in that time lag. And with Big Telecom, we're talking about trillions upon trillions of dollars. So there's a lot at stake for them, and it has a lot to do with data. Data is the next cash cow. Data is the next gold mine. It is the next industrial revolution. Data is where all of the money is coming from and all the money is going. As they say, just follow the money. And as the former CIA chief, General Petraeus, has said, we will spy on you through your dishwasher. Thank you for joining me. Coming up next is my colleague, Dr. Larry Burke, who will be talking more about health harms and why our government is not protecting us. And in our upcoming program, I'll be showing you how to safety-proof your cell phone and your computer. We hope to see you there.